Hey, thanks for joining, everybody. Welcome to the Coding Zoo. I hope you're having a great week. If this is your first time joining, my name is Shane. This is the Coding Zoo Java playlist, and in today's lesson, we are going to cover Java Lambdas. Java Lambdas. We're going to cover Java Lambdas. It is something new that was added to Java a few years ago to help Java get closer to being able to handle the functional programming paradigm. It's close to programming with functions. So hey, if that interests you, stick around. We're going to jump right in. All right, so if you would, look at my desktop here. So I mentioned that Java Lambdas are one of the things that has been brought to Java to provide a more functional paradigm type programming. A Lambda, by definition, is strictly just a block of code that can be passed into another method, another procedure on an object. A Lambda is basically a block of code that you can pass around. Well, couldn't you do that in Java before? Well, truthfully, you couldn't. You couldn't just pass a method around. Here's what I mean by that. So before in Java, if you look here, I have a class that's called printer, and it has a method on it. A method, a procedure. It's not a function, it's a method. So what's the difference in a method and a function? Well, a function, I can take just that function and I can pass it around to other objects, to other functions, right? Well, in this case, I have an object that has a method, and I can't just pass the print method around. I have to pass the printer object around. So if I was to create a job that I wanted to use this printer for, I couldn't just pass the print method. I'd have to pass the whole object, and then whatever is using that object would have to call print, right? So I'm passing objects around. Those objects may have properties, they may have other methods on them, but I just want to, do something that's more functional. I just want to perform one action. I don't want to tie it to an object. I just want to perform one function. This wouldn't let me do that. Java is an object-oriented language. That kind of makes sense. Object-oriented and functional programming are two different programming paradigms. They are ways of doing things differently. So why do both? Why have a mixture of both? Well, it's always good to have, different tools for different problems. But one of the common design patterns that you'll often see implemented in Java, in an object-oriented language, is a strategy pattern. Well, what is a strategy pattern? Well, a strategy pattern is I have this different types of behavior that I want to pass to an object for that object to use in certain circumstances. For example, I may have an order management system that in Canada would take this tax behavior for Canada, a tax strategy for Canada. It may take a tax strategy for US, and I would have one order management program that could use one or the other. That's called a strategy pattern, and I'm creating basically different procedures to be used, and I don't really need to create different objects. Could do that in Java, but you had to use either an object with a method and pass the object around, or you had to do what's called anonymous classes. So an anonymous class was kind of a hack way of doing it. You could basically create an interface. So here is a printer interface. There's no implementation. This class up here can be made into an object, and it has an implementation. This printer interface is just an interface. There's no implementation. And then there's a print method on that interface. Again, no implementation. And then you create an anonymous class in your code, and you'd run that method on the interface in the anonymous class. That's one way we would implement like a strategy pattern. Now, you couldn't just pass a single method around. You had to add a little bit more plumbing to make it work. And it did work. It's just a little bit more painful. Just a little bit more painful to code and to maintain. So eventually Java introduced Java Lambdas, and it's closer to the functional paradigm. So imagine if you were doing functional programming, you were creating a strategy, you would just create a function called tax Canada products or tax USA products, right? you'd have a function that's made for either one, and you could have a different one per country, per state, per agency, etc., etc. Hopefully that makes sense. Well, since Java didn't have functional paradigms, you couldn't really do that until Lambdas came along. You had to do either an object with a method on it and pass it around, or you had to do like an interface and an anonymous object and pass it around. So, hey, thanks for joining. If you liked the video, click the like button, please. If you have any questions, if I didn't explain something well to you, hey, just let me know. I'm here to help you. I'll explain better in the comments. What do you think about Lambdas? Underneath, they're really truly not functions. They're still objects, but it's one step closer. Definitely a lot better paradigm to be able to have that in your toolkit when you need it. So if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead, click subscribe and click that little bell icon so you'll get alerts. And I hope you had a great week. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope to see you doing a lot of hoping today. Hope to see you next time. Bye.